name is Helen, I'm a jewellery artist and welcome to my studio. I've had lots of lovely questions about hand braiding, how to get started, and some of those that have been braiding for quite some time but feel a little bit stuck. So in today's vlog you will find 5 hints and tips to get you started or to get you out of that rut. So for braiding we don't actually need to be on the bench. We could be anywhere. I mean, my favourite spot is obviously on the beach, but a table will do. I'm just going to collect up a few things and I'll meet you at the table. Before we get on with the 5 tips, I'm just going to tell you about my setup. So today we're only going to be talking about braiding of wire. So it could be sterling silver, it could be copper, it could be brass, it could be gold. These are the fundamentals of either starting or improving your hand braiding. If you have a jeweller's bench, I know there's a lot of people, you know, we're just starting out. You can use a coffee table or table. You'll see me using this bench. It's a slice of a worktop with some heavy metal feet on it. It is quite heavy and it does need to be heavy if you're going to do this type of thing. Anyone that's been on my workshops will be quite familiar with this type of setup, and all I use this for, it is a braiding bench. If this is the way you want to go and have it a sort of professional setup, that's great, but I'm predominantly using it for teaching, as I have done for many years. Even on the Jewellery Maker TV, when I was a guest designer, I always used a braiding bench. Let's bring you in a little bit closer, now you know what I'm working on. And you might be wondering why I'm standing. Well, I prefer to sit, especially when I'm braiding, but the helper is having a break. Casey's pinched my chair again. I'll go and get another chair. For demo purposes, I'm using a 0.8 wire. This is gold-plated copper. And a good old trusty cup of tea. To get me started. Yeah. The number 1 biggest tip I can give you, tension. When you're working with braided wire especially, it's all about the tension. I think in any braids anyway, it's about the tension. But in wire, sometimes it is difficult to get the tension you need. People often say to me, oh, I need, you know, I need it a bit neater, or I need it to look a little bit more consistent. Then this tip is for you. So to get tension, some people add weights on the end. This is a typical weight that would be used, and you would braid allowing the weight, so I would hold it just above the weight, allowing that weight to drop down as I braid. And it's, you know, it does work and it's very efficient, but after a while you'll find that your arm starts to ache. There's quite a bit of weight in that. Find that the smaller one just doesn't work at all. You can get a good tension using the weight method. There's pretty good tension on it, but already my arm is aching, so yeah, that one's not for me, but it could be for you. So how do I get my tension? A vise. It doesn't matter what size of vise. I use these on the beach. They're lovely little craft vices, and they're ideal because you've got a vise there, but if you wanted to turn it that way and clamp it that way, you've got a vise there, or you could braid this side, which we'll talk about in a second, why that's handy. So these, there's nothing wrong with these. They won't actually fit onto my bench, otherwise I would use and show it to you now. The next one I'm going to show you, because a lot of people have done my workshops, this is what I normally would use. Sorry about the state of it, I've had to dig it out of storage. I've given it a wipe over and it's still looking rather dirty, but it has been in use for about 10-15 years, something like that. So we can forgive it for its little dullness. Again, I chose the Dremel when it first came out because you've got the swivel head action, you've got your vise which you can tilt forward as well, so it's two directions of tilt, so you can braid up or to the side. But it's a big old thing, but it served me well. But you could get some really hefty wires in there, and indeed I have. So that's great if you're looking for a real heavy duty type of a braid. Okie doke. So that brings me back to the Proxon. And I love this Proxon. Again, it's got the swivel head, it's got everything the Dremel has got, it's just a little bit more compact, which suits me. So we've got the swivel head. Go in at any angle so you can, you know, braid in the bath if you want to. Then we've got the vice mouthpiece there, but we've got a notch. You can't quite see it from that angle, but it actually means, and you can even drop it all the way so it's completely horizontal. So that's my favourite choice at the moment. Sorry Dremel, I do love you. I love you, little baby. So let me show you why I've chosen the vise. So with the weight, it drops down and it's quite heavy, but it does bring the braids together. With this method, you're in control and you're pulling up and away. So when I'm braiding, I'm pulling up, which I find a much easier technique to use, and I can do it for many hours, than having the weight beneath you that's dragging you down all the time. I think when you're braiding up, the best tension you're going to get is pulling against a vise. When I start off, I just start off very quickly. And sometimes the first few steps may be just to, you know, get the natural rhythm going before I add in my finger. So my finger is like a braiding plate and I am pulling up, so I'm pulling that up as I go. So as I'm crossing my wires, I'm pulling against the vise. And that's probably what you're not realising when you're seeing me braiding. That's where my tension's coming from. I'm pulling up and away from the vise. So that is tip number 1. So that leads me on to tip number 2, which is your looms. I haven't even got it out of the packet yet. There's 2 in here. These are the looms of my choice. There's lots of different looms on the market. These are Kumihimo. Well, they're actually like a westernised form of Kumihimo. Kumihimo use Muradai, which are wooden looms with weights attached, but this is our sort of version of it. Unfortunately, it's sort of a throwaway version, and I'm working with somebody at the moment to produce something a little bit more sustainable. But this is what's on the market. It does do 2 things really well. The first is it will help with your tension, especially if you're first starting off. Anyone taking my classes will recognise this. So you've got your wires, your vise and your loom. So then you've got an extra tension, because when you are braiding, let me just stand up and show you, and finger and thumb exactly in the same position as without the loom. But you will get a more consistent braid, and you can braid for longer, and the braid will be consistent for longer. If you're first starting out, your vise or a weight and the loom is the way to go. And you really do get a really nice tight braid without much effort, to be honest. So that's my studio choice. So if I'm out and about, you could easily pop your loom on your weight and do it that way. things you do need to know about the loom. If you look out for my YouTube shorts over the next coming weeks, I'll have some more hints and tips, and that'll include a bit more detail about these loom boards. But this is enough to get you started or to get that tension going. Tip number 3. So tip number 3 is about understanding your pattern. I've got 5 wires here and they're in the vertical position ready for braiding. So if I'm doing something like the Celtic Braid of 5, it's also known as the wheat sheaf. I've heard it called the Viking, and I've also heard it called fishtail. So you can choose any one of those names. Now if you're using that pattern in the vertical position, you're going to struggle a bit. I mean, even I would struggle a bit. Let me show you. It's one of the easiest patterns there is. And that's all we're doing, is manipulating one wire at a time. But I don't know if you can see down the bottom here. It's not that consistent. It is quite even, but then I have got a natural tendency for tension, and I probably could get away with it. But this pattern wasn't made to be braided like this. It was meant to be braided horizontally. And this is why this vise is really good, and indeed the Dremel does it as well. It'll drop into that horizontal position. So now we can braid the way it's meant to be, and we will get a much crisper and much more continuous braid with great tension, because it was meant to be braided horizontally. So I'll flip you down now and you can have a look and see what I mean. So these are the very loose wires that we tried to braid the Celtic braid, and it's very loose. And the more I would have done that in the vertical position, the worse it would have got. But if we bring it down now to the horizontal position, the way it's supposed to be braided, we will quickly be able to bring all these wires together the way they're meant to be. You see how easy it is? I am pulling against the vise, but I'm pulling against it this way. Hopefully you can see that I'm getting a much tighter, nicer braid, because this is the way it is meant to be braided. Oh, I've got to get my nails done, haven't I? So it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So on to the next tip. Number 4, which is hammers. I know, if you're anything like me, you love a good hammering. I can't be the only one out there. This hammer isn't really appropriate because we've got metal, we've got more metal, and then we've got another piece of metal. So the whole is going to create an unhappy braid. You'll get fatigue, even if you get away with hammering it now. At some point in the future, when somebody's wearing it, it's going to break. And it doesn't hold very good energy either. So no to this hammer. There's a time and a place for a good hammering, and this isn't it. So what we want is for our braid to be caressed gently and loved, like we've been loving it, for all that great energy in it. We don't want to be hammering it out now. So either a nice nylon hammer, that does great. And to be honest, most braids don't even need a hammering at all. If you're just tidying it up, great. But you know, a lot of my braids come straight off the braiding bench and onto the soldering. You can miss out this step sometimes. But if you need to do it, or you want to do a little bit of caressing, flattening, caressing, that type of thing, then these are brilliant. So I've got the rawhide and the nylon. The rawhide I actually prefer. I think it's such a gentle piece, and yeah, we can stroke our wires and love them, tap them, and just really get a nice feel for them. And I would also recommend, if you're using sterling silver and gold especially, then pop a piece of leather on there. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Feels good as well, you know. You can shape it. It's still got a lot of lovely strength in there. We haven't hammered it and it's not ready to fracture, which takes me on to, yeah, that's all we need to do, is put a lot more practice in place. You can braid with any gauges of wire. These are the sterling silver wires, but I would practice with the copper. If you're braiding with gold, you don't want to use your gold stash up to practice on. So brass is pretty good. Personally, I don't use a lot of brass. I think the brass can be quite coarse, but give it a go, because it, you know, it might suit you. What suits one doesn't suit another. So give it a go. But I do recommend bare copper for all your practicing, and for jewellery as well. There's many people that will order from me just the bare copper braided because of its medicinal purposes. So yeah, practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect, as they say. And apparently it takes 10,000 hours of practicing to become a master. So we might as well enjoy what we're doing, which actually brings me on to number 6. Okay, so I said 5 tips. But number 6 is actually put the music on, shake out those shoulders, give a little shimmy. Yeah, really get up loose. Really enjoy the braiding and the great therapy that it can bring. If you really want to get into manifesting, all you've got to remember is be careful what you manifest. Keep those thoughts clean, because you never know what may happen. On a serious note, relax, breathe, enjoy the serenity. And talking of serenity, I think it's time to go to the beach. The beach is deserted this evening. Makes me just want to sit and paint or sketch. Yeah, it's just beautiful. So we're walking along, and this side of the beach there's nobody, just me, Andrew, and a few birds. There's just a couple of families with their dogs on the other side of the beach. The water, the sea, I don't know, it's all the way out there, and I just feel calm, relaxed, and really I should have brought down my sketch pad, as I said, but sometimes it's just nice to chill, and this is probably one of those moments. I feel so like I'm fighting off a bit of a cold, so just coming down here really does help. Just gonna take it all in for a few moments, and then probably head to the pub. There we go. Look at that. Look at the sea. Very calm, very tranquil. Complete opposite from last weekend when the beach was full of footballs and rugby balls. This week Yeah. Me, you, and the cooing of the birds. Pretty perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna pop off now to have a bite to eat and a drink, I think. Yeah. So Helen, it's back to you in the studio. I've had such a wonderful, calm and serene week. You've seen how lovely it was down on the beach. We've had a lovely braiding session as well this morning, and yeah, I feel so serene. Which brings me to a little something I wanted to read. And it says, each week bring something from the natural world to place in your home. Or that could be your studio, or you know, your business. This could be a wild flower, a shell, a stone, a feather, a leaf, or even a twig. Light a candle each day and stop and reflect and just be. And that's a bit like what, you know, week I've had. So I think it's been a week of manifesting, where manifestations, dreams have started to come to me. And I've got to ding my bell of gratitude a couple of times. The first ding is because I've been taken on as a distributor and an ambassador for Antex wax carving, and I'm really excited about this. I feel like I'm a proper business now, so that was really nice. And then I've got to do a couple of more dings because I've had a couple of more orders in as well. And I'm really grateful for the lovely people that are supporting me. Some I do recognise the names of, and I thank you very much. And others are new to me, and I really appreciate everyone, every one of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And you will find in your packages this week, you will find a little bit of an extra present, maybe from nature, we'll see. But yeah, we'll package a bit of love up in there as well. So that brings me to the end of this week's studio vlog. I just want to say thank you. And don't forget to create the life you love.